You can see its bumper.
Got a bird's eye view, and it certainly doesn't look good from up here.
The tank is full, the engine's humming. Those wide open roads are beckoning. So sit back and get ready for Motoring 89. Brought to you by Quaker State. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will. This week on Motoring 89.
Back the other way. Good.
They got such a style about them. They're not boxy looking. I don't know. I've always just thought they have a good styling and something that's irreplaceable, but I think people would definitely buy them.
Everybody, this week we are celebrating an anniversary. It's the 25th anniversary of the Ford Mustang. I'm driving a 1972 Mustang. Under the hood is a 351 Cleveland. Now over the next half hour, we're going to look back at the Mustang and try and discover why it has become such a classic automobile. Let's start though by going back to the beginning.
Mustang. Mustang is coming. Mustang is coming April 17th. The unexpected, the new Ford Mustang at your Ford dealers.
The time was right for Mustang. It was the early 60s, and a generation of World War II baby boomers had become car-buying adults. They wanted something different from their parents. They wanted bucket seats, floor-mounted stick shifts, and high-performance engines. And on April 17, 1964, they got it all for a grand total of $2,500.
Out of the Ford Pavilion, there's a daydream corner called Mustang. This is the car that dreams are made of. Dream your own Mustang. Take your choice of a 6 or 3 V8s. Power steering, power brakes, automatic or standard transmission, dozens of options. But as standard equipment, you get bucket seats, wall-to-wall carpeting, all vinyl upholstery, padded instrument panel, and full wheel covers. Even though Mustang is a dream, its low price is a beautiful reality. Test drive one right now at your Ford dealers in Pleasant Dreams.
Initial response to the Mustang was overwhelming. On introduction day, a Ford dealer in Chicago locked the doors of Mustangs in his showroom because he feared for the safety of people trying to crowd into them. First-year sales estimates of 100,000 units were surpassed in just 4 months. Now, just 25 years later, the Mustang has achieved celebrity status, with Mustang clubs like this one in Florida drawing a crowd every week.
We have one of the greatest car clubs, I think, in the world. I belong to a number of others, and everybody that I've talked to have said that our car club is just unusual. We're kind of like a family. Our club, incidentally, started here, our Suncoast Mustang Club, about 7 years ago. So we started, and I think we had about, I've got the list at home, I think it was 14 members the first night. And since then we built up, we do no advertising, but just by virtue of people hearing about us and wanting to join. I think we have somewhere around 90-some members at the moment.
It's a 427 side oiler, and it's stock from the factory with 425 horsepower. With the modifications I've made to it, it's now 550 horsepower. And it's plumb for nitrous if I want to put it in. That adds another 100 horse if I want it, which I don't use. The car's always done real well. Last week at 110 Mustangs and Shelby's down in Orlando, Florida, I took best of show.
Excuse me, I know you look too young to remember these cars back then. How do you find them? How do you like them?
Oh, I'm very much the enthusiast, actually. I've enjoyed Mustangs for about 10 to 12 years now. I've owned probably close to 10 different ones, including Boss Mustangs, Mach 1s. I used to drag race my one Mach 1.
Do you think young people today, if they were available, would be buying them?
Oh, yeah. They got such a style about them. They're not boxy looking. I don't know, I've always just thought they have a good styling and something that's irreplaceable, but I think people would definitely buy them. They're sharp looking cars.
Not only is the Mustang sharp, but it's also in great demand. Frank Frederick is taking an original back to Mississauga, Ontario with him.
That's standard on it too, is it? Or that's been added?
An option.
Option on it?
All option. But this is built the way I really want it.
What'd you buy here?
64 and a half Mustang convertible.
How much?
$10,000.
Good price?
Good price for a Canadian car. By the time I get it back there, that car up in Canada should be around $18,000.
Is it like losing a member of the family?
Well, it's more than that. It's my best friend, my Mustang.
How long have you had it?
10 years, 11 years. And I rebuilt it from nothing up. And it's perfect shape.
Do you have another Mustang, or are you now going to try and get another one?
I may get a hatchback, but I doubt it. I don't think you can find anything around that I can afford anymore.
So this will make it back to Canada, no problem, eh?
Well, hey,
Just jump in and drive it.
ain't nothing, sure.
You're having a hard time there, but tell me,
having a hard time.
is there a significance to these hula hoops in the Mustang?
There sure is, yeah. This is the Mustang taking a full circle around. You know, I mean, it's coming around to 25 years right up to now, 1989. And we're proud of the Mustangs.
Open up and say, ah.
This year's model will likely be a collector's item in the future. All Mustangs produced from March 27th until the end of the 1990 model year will have an anniversary emblem featuring the galloping pony affixed to the dashboard on the passenger side. The tradition continues.
Every time I went to the beach with Albert, some big muscle guy was always kicking sand in his face. It made me so mad. He tried all the exercises, went through the diet. I wonder whatever happened to him.
Albert's a Mustanger now. He bought a beautiful Mustang convertible, one of 3 Mustangs for $65. Nothing soft about this car, except the all-vinyl interior and the carpeting. With a big 200 cubic inch strong arm 6, he's got a tough new kind of action. And when he added optional power brakes, power steering, all of a sudden his whole life changed. Nobody's kicking sand at Albert now. We don't spend much time here anymore. Put a few kicks in your life. Take a Mustang out for a little road work. Mustang, Mustang, Mustang.
Next on Motoring 89, Buick Bonanza.
There's a rough road ahead with no end in sight. Quaker State engines don't know when to quit.
Quaker State is the only motor oil with QSX, quality engineered to exceed every single car maker's Canadian requirements for maximum engine protection. So pistons are protected from friction mile after mile. Valves are protected from wear year in, year out. That's why Quaker State engines run strong and run long.
Quaker State engines don't know when to quit.
The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.
Test Drive with Graham Fletcher.
The subject to this week's test drive is the 1989 Buick Century. Now, along with its restyled looks comes a brand new 3.3-litre V6 engine. We're going to head off to the skid pad right now and put both the car and its engine to the test. The Buick Century features what Buick called their Dyna-Ride system, and they say that it's designed to give you a smooth, comfortable ride. And it's evident that the suspension system was tuned with a priority towards comfort rather than the handling characteristic side, because it's definitely too soft running it up through the cones there. But on the highway, no problem. I've been impressed with the power that the 3.3 puts out, so it'd be interesting to see just how well it propels it up to 100. Well, there you have it, a little over 10 seconds to reach the 100. What I do like about this engine, it is very responsive. We've got the decelerometer in place and it's time to do the brake test. It'll be interesting to see just how well the disc drum setup pulls it to a stop. Now we're at 80, here we go. Not bad at all. We were pulling about 28 there, which would be a little over 105, 106. The dash layout is clean and logical, and information can be retrieved at a glance. The power 6-way seats and tilt steering made it easy to find a comfortable driving position, and I like the chunky feel of the steering wheel. As with any coupe, entry to the rear is cramped. However, once you get back there, you'll find ample head and leg room for all but the tallest of passengers. The trunk is a good size and features a nice flat floor, but the lift-over is high and opening restricted. The revised styling of the Century is best described as evolutionary rather than revolutionary. The new wraparound parking lights, sloping roofline, and restyled rear end are a definite improvement. I really don't have a pet peeve this week. It's more of a bit of a disappointment, and that was in the amount of torque steer that was evident with this Century. It became apparent during the acceleration tests on the skid pad. Anyway, that aside, let's go to the scoreboard and see how I rated the rest of the Century. With 150 horsepower and 185 pounds-feet of torque on tap, the new 3.3-litre V6 engine provides plenty of hustle. Buick's Dynaride suspension system is far too soft for my liking. A little more firmness would not have compromised comfort too much, but added a great deal in the handling department. The front disc rear drum setup proved to be adequate. Our test Century was a little noisier than I expected, but still within reasonable limits. Our test car turned in 10.9 litres per 100 kilometres, which is reasonable. Overall, I liked the new looks and really appreciated the new 3300 engine. All in all, very well executed.
She's all sweets and bucket seats, sweet 6-cylinder Mustang, power-packed and really stacked. Sweet 6-cylinder Mustang, low-gas diet made me try it. Sweet 6-cylinder Mustang, you're my kind of car. Yes, you really are. She's a root-toot-tootin', big six-shootin', sweet 6-cylinder Mustang.
Why don't you come in and see what a terrific deal the Ford dealer will give you on a new Mustang? It's got all kinds, all colors, all options. Pick out any one you like. All except this one. This one's mine.
Sweet 6-cylinder Mustang.
Not out of reach, just out of sight. The 1989 Ford Probe GT.
You're looking at a 1968 Mustang. Now, at first glance, you might think this car was rescued from a junkyard. Not so. In fact, this is what this car used to look like only 3 years ago. Makes you wonder why anybody would want to strip a car like this down. Jerry Jensen, you're the owner. Why'd you do it?
Well, the car was very nice as a daily driver, but it was an original 54,000-mile car. I did not want to put more miles on it excessively. We do want to compete with the car as a trailered show car in Mustang Club America on a national level, and that's why we're taking it down and bringing it back together again. It'll look like it did the day it came off the assembly line.
Your front lawn looks like a Mustang museum. It's obviously a labor of love.
Yes, these cars are definitely members of the family, and we're looking forward to bringing them along.
Well, Jerry doesn't have the engine in this car, at least not right now, but when he does, you can bet it'll be a labor of love for Motoring 89's own mechanic, Bill Gardner. So let's join Bill now in his garage.
Earlier in the show, you saw some vintage Mustangs. Well, this isn't a Mustang, more like a Clydesdale maybe, but we're going to show you how a vehicle like this pickup truck, can be beaten within an inch of its life and still come back for more. Well, this baby's in pretty rough shape, as you can see. Holes right through this tailgate. Truck's never even been washed. But you know, in spite of all the loads this truck's carried, look, this tailgate still works fine. Opens, closes and locks. Just amazing. From a technician's standpoint, a vehicle like this is just a delight to work on. Every component is easy to access, all on their own, nothing around them in your way. You just start working on the item that you want to service. Compare it to today's minivans, for example, or some cars, and this, I mean, nothing could be easier. This is just a very simple vehicle to service. Part of the reason it lasts so long and works so well. Now we're going to put it up on the hoist and show you a feature that's unique to Ford pickup trucks, their twin I-beam front suspension. This twin I-beam front suspension began its life in the middle 60s on the Ford pickup trucks, and it's still used today. Here are the two axle beams. This is the right axle beam and the left axle beam. The left axle beam begins out here at the spindle and kingpin and crosses over and underneath the front of the truck, ends up anchored here on the right-hand side of the truck. The right axle beam begins again out at the spindle and kingpin and crosses over and is anchored slightly on the left of the truck. This unit here, the radius rod, positions the axle beam front to rear. It's anchored here at the rear with a set of stiff bushings and a bracket right onto the frame rail. And it also carries the shock absorber and the coil spring. A very important service item on these trucks is lubrication of the kingpins. They're quite prone to seizing up if they're not lubricated properly. They have been replaced on today's trucks with a lubed for life ball joint. But if you own one of the older models like this one that still has kingpins, it's very important to keep these properly lubricated. You may remember those Ford truck commercials with a pole attached to the front wheel and one to the mirror. Truck went through a course of light bulbs, and the bottom one smashed all the light bulbs and the top one just rode through beautiful. This suspension is quite good. It can take a tremendous amount of abuse without feeding it back to the driver. This pickup truck survived almost 10 years and 300,000 miles of abuse and neglect. Can you imagine how much more use you could get if you'd looked after it? Well, next week we're going to show you some of that maintenance. We're going to show you exhaust systems. We'll be underneath the car. Until then, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 89.
They respected Liz in the lab. She was a PhD. But no one knew how much fizz there was to Liz until...
Only Mustang makes it happen. Only Mustang makes life great. Mustang rules you. Mustang rules you. Mustang 68.
In her 68 Mustang Fastback, the PhD was pure TNT. Mustang 68, with great options like stereo radio and selection. Mustang, the original, a better idea than ever for 68. Nowadays, things are really bubbling, because as Liz can tell you, a PhD helps, but...
Only Mustang makes it happen. Mustang 68.
Ford has a better idea.
Behind the Wheel with Charlie Goodman. This week, a special edition. Motoring 89 senior editor Michael Sayk steps away from his monitor to experience the Nissan School of Advanced Driving.
this car, how much the wheels are turned. As you saw, went dead straight. In spite of the fact that those wheels are cut as sharply as they could possibly be turned to the left, that car didn't waver, not an iota, went dead straight. Now, some people would say, oh my God, that car's out of control. No, it's not. It's going straight, exactly where we all knew it would go. How could a car that's doing something that's totally predictable be out of control? Of course it's not out of control. The driver of that car, if they have half a clue as to what they're doing, knows that car is going to go straight. Please just get comfortable, get yourself seated where you think is proper. Drive down the right-hand side of the exercise, get familiar with the direction and the flow, and then around the return road, stop at the top. I'm going to check your seating position, and then we'll send you on from there. Okay? So everybody grab a weapon and make your way down the skid pad, okay? Too much. Just a little too much. Come over here. Okay. That time, simply what happened was a little bit too much in the touch phase. At the beginning part of the braking was too aggressive. If we detect lockup, I want you to release the brake pedal just a littlest amount, okay? So that we can unlock the front wheels and back to the threshold braking. I want you to be a little more gentler to start. The braking should feel like this. Touch and then squeeze, okay? Not touch. If the touch is too abrupt, we're gonna get overkill.
Done intentionally?
No, it wasn't.
Okay. There is a sequence to the steps. It's always brake first. And the reason why we brake is because the car will travel in a straight line. Okay, the direction that we are traveling already. So we want it to brake, steer, release, go. You don't steer before or you set the car out of balance. Okay, and then when you do release the brakes, the car's all over. So brake, steer, release, go.
Okay.
Keep saying those to yourself.
Okay. Brake, steer, release, go. Brake, steer, release, go.
Okay, we're going to do some skid recovery now. As we've learned throughout the day, there are some differences between the front drive and the rear drive car, and it's even more noticeable now in the skid recovery part. So what we're going to be doing is taking you out on the skid pad and driving you around in a counterclockwise direction. And Tim and I are simply just going to give you a pull on the handbrake, and that's going to set the car into a spin. From there, it's now up to the driver. Okay, the car's already in the spin. What do I now do? Okay, now we don't have to go going too fast. That's about perfect speed right there, 40 Ks. And we're just going to give a pull on the handbrake a little quicker. You lost a little bit of speed there. And let's see what happens once the car gets into a little bit of a spin. Okay? Steer, steer, steer. Remember, use that steering wheel to its maximum effect. And also, don't forget, in a front drive car, we have to maintain constant throttle or even a little bit of acceleration. Steer, 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 and then back the other way. Good. Good. That was a good one. Okay, a little slow in recovering the hands back, but the general idea. Okay?
Yeah, likewise.
Hopefully we won't meet by accident. Ha 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 ha. School jokes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay. See you later.
Thanks.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Take care.
Hey, don't forget, eh? Don't forget it. Stay with it.
Okay, Mike, you can only watch so many episodes of Motoring 89, but what did you learn in person?
Okay, I learned actually how little I did know. You can't learn about this stuff by just watching on TV or just reading a book or anything. I think you really have to get out and practice it. Personally, I think I need a lot more practice on that, but I think just by getting the basic message planted, I think I'm going to be able just to apply that on my day-to-day driving. And who knows, we'll see in 3 or 4 years if I ever get in a tight spot, if it actually works.
Car and Driver magazine christened it a striking piece of automotive sculpture. It has a 138 horsepower engine, a drag coefficient that embarrasses the Porsche 911, and a multi-link suspension with optional full-time all-wheel drive. Introducing the 1990 Nissan Access, the first sports car for parents.
There's a rough road ahead with no end in sight. Quaker State engines don't know when to quit.
Quaker State is the only motor oil with QSX, quality engineered to exceed every single car maker's Canadian requirements for maximum engine protection. So pistons are protected from friction mile after mile. Valves are protected from wear year in, year out. That's why Quaker State engines run strong and run long.
Quaker State engines don't know when to quit.
The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.
Well, that's it. I hope you've enjoyed our special edition of Motoring 89 on the 25th anniversary of the Ford Mustang. Right now, you're looking at a 1989 Mustang, and who knows, in a few years, it too could be a classic. We want to thank the Ford Motor Company for supplying us with those classic commercials. And if you have a vintage car, a unique car, why don't you drop us a line, and who knows, we might be able to feature it on Motoring 89. We'll see you next week.
If you have any questions or suggestions, drop us a line at Motoring 89, 379 Danforth Avenue, Toronto, Ontario, M4K 1P1. Motoring 89 is brought to you by Quaker State. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.